Once upon a time, it was Tuesday, July 23rd, 2013, and it was so. Welcome to Day 9 Daily, number 612? Where we learned to be a better gamer? I don't know what number it is, but that's fine, because the important thing is I've done a lot of these. I may as well just say hi and tell you what we're going to talk about today. In today's daily, we're going to be looking at a wonderful Zergling aggression-based ZVP style from Scarlett, snatched from Scarlett versus HerO in the WCS round of 32 Group G matches. To do this analysis, we are not merely going to look at the games and talk about why the strategy is good, but we're going to talk about the whole concept of coming up with our own strategy and how to begin going about those said sort of things. And yes, Calmboy8, this is a Dimir shirt. Dimir, actually my least favorite guild in Magic, but one of my favorite symbols. So, without any cracking left, it's important to note that this weekend, starting Thursday, there will be no daily. There will be no day 9's day off, because I will be at the Red Bull training grounds in Orlando, Florida. So tune in there. Twitch.tv/Red Bull Esports. More simply, go to day9.tv because everything I've ever done ever is just on there as an event in the calendar. It's on there literally now. Tomorrow's show isn't even on the daily because it's my fault. But the training grounds is. And I'm sorry I didn't put tomorrow's on there. I'm going to, because tomorrow is the SC2L. That's the Western Team League that I'll be casting with In Control. That's it. No Fun Day Monday next week. I'm doing Day 9 story time. Let's talk about the notion of coming up with your own build. So, as much as people love to tout the phrase, oh, you play standard. Yeah, you standard play, man. Dude, what are you doing? Just play standard. I actually, to a certain extent, think that in terms of the learning of someone, picking up some other builds is a nice starting grounds, but that doesn't by any time mean, or by any means imply that the standard play is the best way. For instance, in Protoss versus Protoss, there was a very long time where you just went for a lot of Colossus. Excuse me, Colossi. And that was the standard. You had to play standard and go mass Colossi. And now we're actually seeing, in the Pro League, almost no one goes for Colossus. It's pretty much Immortal Archon with some Zealots and a lot of harassment, a lot of aggression. So, rather than talk about things in terms of, do you have to play standard, because standard is good, we're going to begin with our simple notion of timings, looking at timings, so that we can begin talking about this entirely fresh style of Zerg that we're going to be seeing out of Scarlett. So again, if your intuition tells you, I think what I'm doing is a lot smarter than what everyone else is doing, just try to figure out a way to justify it, because you may develop the new standard play. Yeah. Seriously, there's nothing wrong with going against the grain of what everyone else is doing. And actually, on that note, for instance, in Protoss vs. Protoss, even though none of the pros are going Colossus, Colossus is a very strong, very straightforward unit to use, and it's real easy to just get some straightforward wins by building a lot of Colossus, so there's nothing wrong with just doing that and waiting until you're at the tip-top of Grandmaster League to realize, well, I guess those Korean pros really did know best. Nothing wrong with that at all. So, to begin with, let's introduce this style. It begins with the following statement, the following idea. What happens if we try to apply a lot of Zergling pressure at the start of the game? I've been playing on the ladder, some have been watching some WCS matches, and I've been seeing that more Protosses are delaying cannons at their front when they do early expand, and the rest of the Protosses are going gateway first. Maybe I can just open speed Zergling and bust in and deal some damage. To be able to properly look at this, we have to get some data. We have to ask ourselves the basic questions. When does a player get his early expand up, if he is early expanding, and get those cannons up? And when does, and what does a player look like if he's going for gateway first? Now, you might not have access to replays, so first and foremost, I want to just show you, you can just create your own data. So this is me. I think this is the one where I messed up. Yeah, cool. So here's me. I just decided to do a really simple test. What would happen if I went for, if the Protoss player went for sound into pylon? What if he went pylon first, scouted, and then built a forge first? When would his stuff be done? So I did a couple of adjustments in this. You know, let's pretend that I'm not a pro, and I can't micro my probe. I just sent the probe out, and we'll just imagine that he's scouting. And I'm just going to go for around the 15 Nexus, or excuse me, around the 15 Forge that a lot of players do. And what I'm mimicking right now is a Protoss player who flips out and panics at the idea that he's going to get rushed. So, oh my god, here I am. Let me derp derp, hip derp. And there it is, great. It looks like at 3:13 I have completely walled off, and I even halted at 16 probes just to get a worst case scenario look. So again, what have I done? I've made this statement. You know, I think this early ling style will work, and I got some data. 3:10 is about when a panicked Protoss who went Forge first would get his wall off up. Nice. What if he tried to throw in a Nexus, which is a lot more common? Hell of a lot more common. Well, no problem. So notice that this took like 3 minutes and 10 seconds of my time, so I'm going to create another one. This took 4 minutes of my time. What happens if the Protoss player goes for an early expand, a Forge first, but throws down a Nexus? So there's a 15 Forge. I'm pretending to have scouted. You'll actually note that I did the full scout path into the main and wandered back here. We get a very useful piece of data as well. Alright, I'm stopping at 17 probes, which is pretty common for Forge and then Nexus. And let's say, again, suppose that Forge Nexus was the build order for a Protoss player, who then panicked and said, oh my god, Zerglings with speed are coming. Cut all probe production, and just started to wall himself off. Doink and doink. It looks like around 4 minutes is when this gateway just gets started. So cool. Notice what we have done. We have said that if a Protoss player goes Forge first and panics and doesn't build a Nexus, he gets his wall off up by around 3:10. If he doesn't panic and gets his Nexus and then tries to wall off, he'll get it about as early as 4 minutes. Cool. We now have the first half of our questions answered. Is there any way that speed Zerglings can get in here? Well, I have some data. And we might ask ourselves the question, well, what happens if he goes for some sort of gateway first build? There's nothing wrong with just looking at replays. Here's the one that I wanted to do. So, you know, you might be able to hop on a website and download a game, or you just are watching a stream. This is really common for me. I'm watching a stream, you know, I'm watching Root Sage play or something like that, and I'll just start noting timings in my head. However you get it, you can make the games yourself, you can find games like this, and there's going to be a whole bunch of other interesting interaction that goes down. But that's not my goal in this game. My goal is to get the timings of when, for instance, an expand goes down. If he goes gateway first, when does the expand normally come down? It actually normally comes down at around 3:40, and there it is. And then most of the time, the Protoss player throws down a mothership core, which I believe pops out at around 4:10 is the most common. So great. Nifty thrifty. I'm just going to take a snapshot view of a gateway firsting Protoss. He has his expand, he has his mothership core. Nice. Okay. With all of that said, what have we achieved? We have now gotten ourselves some of the timings that are relevant to our question. Our question, of course, is the following. Can I do some sort of Zergling-based aggression early on against a Protoss player? Let's do some investigating into this game from Scarlett. We're actually going to see it in practice. Now, there's one version, there's one test game that I did not show because I can just state it for you and you can wrap your head around it. What happens if we go for Zergling speed and build Zerglings? When do those come out, and when do those, more importantly, get to his base? Great, we would just do a test. And we can then compare the times, you know, the 3:10 for the wall off without Nexus, the 4 minutes for the wall off with Nexus, and the little after 4 minute for the Mothership Core to pop out against a Gateway first opening. So rather than show you that as an example, we will hop into this game and just watch Scarlett do it. So I'm going really fast at the start because my goal is not strategy. My goal is not asking what I should be doing. My goal is to ask, what is it, or what is the time of this pre-decided thing to occur? So for instance, the pool finishes at 3 minutes. There's Zergling speed coming out. Zergling speed, when does this get all the way to the Protoss base? Well, it looks like it would get there a little bit after 4 minutes, is the note. So we can clearly see in our this moment right now, look at how revealing this is for our broad question. If I go Zergling with speed first, what happens if I'm up against a Gateway first Protoss? Well, as we can see, we're going to get in. We're going to do great against a Gateway first Protoss. Hell, we even have another round of Larva that's about to pop off. We have 8 speed Zerglings here. We could have all of these in his base. We would decimate a Gateway first Protoss. Maybe not decimate, but we would give him serious pain. Alright, cool. What about if our opponent went Forge, Cannon, and then built a Nexus? Well, we would be up against a wall off. Alright, cool. Nice. Nice. We now have some answers to these questions. So with that, we're now going to start over from the very beginning. We're going to take a look at the style that we can analyze a little bit more clearly. So first off, for any of you who've been wondering, what the hell is this fast speed Zergling style about which you speak? Is it a 10 pool? Is it a 14 pool? Are we early expanding and then getting gas? What the hell's going on? What we're going to see from Scarlett is the most old school of old school Zerg openings. This is the only safe way to play on maps like Xel'Naga Caverns and Steppes of War, both against Terran and against Protoss. It's very simple. 14 Extractor and 14 Pool. Super damn old school. Overlord moves out just to check for some proxies. Indeed finds that there's some shenanigans going on, but we're almost going to ignore those. Fasoitin. Oh. Ah, HerO's done this a lot on this map. So it could be a reason. The reason we go 14 gas, 14 pool, is that when the pool finishes, we actually have exactly 100 for speed. So there we see 3e Zerglings coming out. We see the Queen coming out. Now, here's already the interesting thing. Most of the time, we pull these drones off. We're going to start to see some cool timings. What was happening at 3:10 in our tests? Allow me to ask you, what was happening at 3:10 in our tests? Well, our Forge firsting player would either have walled himself off and not built a Nexus, or he would have had his Nexus started and not walled off at all, or he went Gateway first and there would be no wall off at all. Those are the three things. So in this circumstance, we can see that at 3:10, we can see exactly what's up with our first Overlord. So Scarlett sees that it's a wall off. What does she do then? Leaves these drones in gas. Leaves them in the gas geyser, and in a completely bonkers, unexpected twist, something that baffles even me, well, at least initially, Baneling Nest right away. This looks like a complete and total cheese play. This looks like a Zerg player who just is given up on life and just wants to go all in. But look at this. Scarlett is expanding behind this. Why would this make sense? Because our Baneling nest and our Banelings are going to be able to pop out before there is any force field. Look at this. HerO doesn't even have a Nexus up. We can further investigate the timings to say, well, God, is there really any way that this sentry could have been out at 5:15? And the answer is not really. If we build a bunch of Zerglings with speed, this interrupts this timing. So look at this. Some speed Zerglings. We got 7 Banelings. And Scarlett going right on back to droning. And there's the Bursto Busto. Actually attacks the cannon. Maybe could have killed it off. But I think the even more significant moment is right here at 5:30. There was literally no time to get this force field up. To emphasize, 3:30 is when most gate... Okay, actually that's a useful thing to note. Let me just tell you a timing that I happen to know. A good gateway timing, which would be a gateway after the Nexus, is around 3:30. Gateways take about a minute, so that would mean it would finish at 4:30. So if you start your cybernetics core at 4:30, it means it's going to finish at 5:30. This is 5:30. So this is about when a cybernetics core will finish for most Protoss players. Literally, physically impossible for a sentry to be out. So if we look at this timing, right here, Scarlett could have just waltzed directly up into the main with these forces and gone for the win. HerO barely micros well enough to be able to prevent this, and barely picks off the correct number of Zerglings to only let 4 in there. But we can see that this is clearly a nice position for Scarlett to be in. Mothership core coming out, no expand for Protoss. Scarlett using speed and Zerglings to be really annoying. The vulnerable locations are always the geysers. Always, 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 always. Trying to dart in here is fine, but geysers always the numero uno most important. And thanks to that Baneling nest, we can be a real pain in the ass consistently. Oh, yeah. Until the Mothership core finds it, in which case, oh, damn it. Get there, get there. Ah, very anticlimactic. In the meantime, Scarlett has just begun droning. 20 to 24, however, hatch is up. Hatch is up. So a very reasonable question is, what is next? What is these next steps? To come back here, I want to ask a very fundamental question. If you get gas really early, then you better fucking make use of it all game long. It wasn't a question. I just wanted to tell you something. That was really fun. I enjoyed myself there. You know, like, let's say Protoss is getting air, getting a lot of queens. Good way to do it. A mineral answer. Getting a lot of queens. So what we see a lot of Zerg, actually a lot of players in general will do, is they will do a gas-based opening, such as Zerglings with speed, and then they'll continue to fall back on these mineral-based solutions. In their head, they're thinking, alright, here's a cool Zergling speed build. He's going air. I always go queens against air, so I'm now going to go queens against air. That's the really simple thought process. But if you're going to get gas early, make use of the damn gas. Now, I'm not saying that you have to leave drones in gas. You can easily pull one out of gas. You could easily pull all 3 out of gas, wait a little bit, and put them back into gas. But you need to be thinking in a very gassy way throughout the game. Scarlett, she leaves these dudes in gas because she gonna get 7 freaking Banelings. Yes! So, of course, plummeting down to no gas. But, again, if you are investing a little bit in gas, it's okay to de-emphasize gas response. But if you're investing some in gas here and then some more gas here, and then a hell of a lot of gas in banelings, then just keep using the geyser. So when we ask ourselves, what is Scarlett's next step? Spending a little bit of gas, do a little bit of damage. But this gas count that has never really climbed particularly high, pulling it off briefly, great. We talked about pulling things off briefly, that's totally fine. Just trying to get this to be a nice equilibrium. We always want both to be quite low. But should Scarlett go for a third? That's what most players would do here, and I think that's incorrect. Goes for burrow, which is a really weird play. And then immediately thereafter, loads right on back up. Evolution chamber for upgrades, and soon enough, a layer. No expander in sight. There's the Zergling attack upgrade, nice, and then... Come on, layer. I know this layer happens. Now, when I say a layer is happening pretty fast, there it is. You might look and say, gosh, the 9-minute mark. That's later than most Zergs. Keep in mind that Scarlett did invest in a whole bunch of damage early on, so HerO is also quite a ways back. HerO doesn't even have his 2 geysers up at this base. HerO has only just finished the Stargate, has 1 Phoenix out right now, and that's it. Everyone's behind. You know that this is an early layer because Scarlett has absolutely no third, and not even that many drones. So, to recap, in part 1, what we got our chance to do some learning in, is we established this question. Can Zergling-based aggression work? And to begin answering our question, we looked at some timings. We learned that against a gateway first opening, we have some big windows of opportunity. But against forge first openings, they seem to close us out. Any solutions we can think of? Well, Scarlett utilizes this baneling nest not just to get essentially a guaranteed bust at the front, but also utilizes it as a way to transition into full, long-term stable play and continues to use the gas from this very early geyser. We haven't talked about why this burrow upgrade is cool. We haven't talked about why this +1 is cool. We've only talked about the idea of distributing these resources properly. If we went for gas early on, we may as well go for some damn gas-based strategies like a fast layer, like fast +1, and even hell, using some burrow antics. So, when we come back in part 2, we'll start to talk about the follow-up from the baneling play, what that baneling play permitted us to do. I'm going to scratch my nose. That was good. We're going to talk about what a good follow-up is, what a bad follow-up would be, and that's what we'll do. So stay tuned. Let's listen to some music. Music!